So my name is Darian Ramirez. Mm.
And I am Kara Morgan.
So let's start with our questions.
Okay.
So, do you want me to read the number one?
Sure, we'll just go one by one, share a few thoughts on each. I think that would be great.
So, what doctrine in Wilber's heart drove him to advocate? Why is that doctrine of the family so important to have in your heart to be passionate and persistent? Well, I think that the the doctrine that made him advocate was that he wanted all men to be free.
Mm-hmm.
He had passion to liberate the slaves, and he had the idea that everyone has to be equal, and said that he was never changed his view. That was very impressive for me because he was very persistent, right? And
Mm-hmm. Okay.
it is important to have passion about something when we want to advocate, because when we have passion, we don't give up so easily. And
Mm-hmm.
it is important to have the doctrine in the heart, the doctrine of the family in the heart, because that is the central plan of our Heavenly Father. And He wants us to live it and to be happy through that. And when we know that something is true, when we really know that something is true, it is easier to advocate for it. And so it is important that we get knowledge about the traditional family in this case so we can advocate it. And I think Wilbur uh, really had that passion because he never gave up. He,
Mm-hmm.
he was very.
I agree. You mentioned about the true doctrine, and one thought I had is, well, as members of the church and advocates for marriage and family, we know the true doctrine about marriage and family, and we need to be passionate and persistent
Mhm.
in sharing these truths and trying to be an influence for good to society when there's so much divorce and discord that's happening.
Yeah.
And um, and I think that Wilbur, he certainly was a compassionate man, and I mean, he took the time to feed people, to give to the needy, took care of animals, and he was also, I think, being prepared for the work of being an advocate for slaves and trying to abolish slavery. And being that he was a compassionate and served others, that prepared him for the work he had to do. And it wasn't so much of a leap of faith in getting involved in the work because he had a foundation of faith and he had a testimony of God. So it was more of a preparatory stage for him to really be passionate about advocating for these slaves. And he was being prepared for his sacred duty, I think.
Yeah. Yes. Well, we think very similar.
Mm-hmm. And another thought I had is with regard to the doctrine of the family and via our studies, if we don't have a passion or an understanding of why marriage and family is important, we can't teach it and we can't testify of its truth. It's just saying a bunch of words, but they don't have any meaning behind them. Whereas if you study and you understand for yourself why, then it becomes more meaningful and you're able to touch more people.
Yeah, that's right. Um, that's right. That is why I said, like, when we know that something is true, like,
Mm-hmm.
we have to. Well, at the end, we're going to discuss about that.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think it is necessary to know about the topic
Mm-hmm.
we want
We
to.
have to know. Yep, that's for sure. Are we on to question 2?
Yeah.
So question 2, we can just go back and forth. Question 2, how did Wilbur employ a theoretical approach to become a more effective advocate. So we had to bring up examples for the microsystem, the mesosystem, the exosystem, and the macrosystem.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like a computer. What I came up with as far as in the microsystem, starting with himself and his immediate surroundings, he began with a change in his own heart, and he looked to his immediate family and friends to help him in his cause. And he asked them for assistance in speaking with people and getting other individuals informed, but it had to start there first with him and with his immediate family and friends.
Yeah, I identified something very similar in the microsystem. I said that Wilbur and his peers were advocating for education matter. But yeah, he started with his desire, and then his friends support them and his family. But it started with him, and also I think that when he went to the ships with the slaves, so he could know how the slaves lived, and he educated himself more in that topic. So,
right. That's for the mesosystem. Yeah, he worked with different groups and individuals, and even with his childhood priest, to gain an understanding about the slave trade firsthand and what that was like.
Yeah. Well, in my case, in the mesosystem, I said that he combined his work with the work of his peers. And so they combine all their forces in the same topic, right? To advocate. And yeah, so that is what I put in the mesosystem.
So what about the exosystem?
The exosystem, he made sure that everyone understood the condition of the slaves. He invited other people to go to the ships too, and he was a storyteller. And yeah, so he made sure that moment it didn't exist the media, the social media, but he uses like his voice and the voice of the peers and everything.
Yeah, he gave them a first-hand experience of what it was like on those horrible ships, and how, and even with Parliament, with the members of the government, he spoke to them about the indecency and inhumanity of how these people were being treated.
Yeah.
As far as the macro system,
I didn't identify that.
What?
I didn't identify that one, but what did you?
Okay, you can take my idea. Never mind. In the macro system, it's like the big picture. He understood the customs and the political views of that era, and he had to work around those ideals in order to advocate for the slaves. So he had an understanding both of how the people were treated, the slaves were treated, but he also had a political, he knew how the lawmakers in Parliament functioned. He knew how they thought.
Yeah.
And he had to be really creative in addressing slave trade and promoting its discontinue, or promoting its, what's the word I'm looking for? Its abolishment. But he had to get around their thinking. He used the political system to promote his bill being his purpose. And the culture and society and the world actually became a better place when slavery was finally abolished. It took a great deal of time, but it made things much better for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah, all right. Thank you for that. But yeah, just like you said, it makes sense. It makes sense.
In a roundabout way. his efforts just gradually built upon one another and he was able to make a change in
Yeah.
society as a whole for the whole world. Question 3. Ready?
Yeah.
Okay, so how did Wilbur and his fellow advocates, that's weird. How did Wilbur and his fellow advocates do and share their research? What evidence did they provide to persuade those opposing or on the fence? So what did he do? What kind of evidence? How did he go about gathering his information to present to the lawmakers?
Well, first he went to the ships, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he saw, I think so, how they lived. Then the peers, and then he invited other people, and he said the story to the people, and he used persuasion, and he touched the emotions to other people, so the other people could be empathic,
Mm-hmm.
and he took people to the slave ships so they could see how the slaves lived too,
Mm-hmm.
so eat milk and everything. That horrible situation they were living. And I think that is how he did his research. Well, and the years too. And that was the evidence too. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it,
And he would get first-hand accounts from some of the slaves and ask them exactly what their experiences were.
mhm,
And he and his friends and even family would go out and get signatures for his petition
yeah,
against slavery, and which proves there's power in numbers with this big responsibility he feels. I'm sure he was very thankful to have his family and friends with him on his side to help build him up. And even there's the part where he builds the box
oh yeah,
that he laid in that was exactly the same dimensions that a slave would sleep in, just to experience for himself what that must have been like. It sounds like it was very confining, that's for sure.
he was very creative.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he yeah, I don't know how to express that, but yeah,
I hear you. I hear
he was very creative.
you.
Okay, so I think we are so fast.
Oh, we're going through fast. That's okay. I
Okay,
think we can do 45 minutes worth. How much time do you have on your recording? Do you have a certain limit?
no, I don't.
That's weird because of mine I do. Anyway, we shall continue.
Okay, so in the number 4, it says,
Mm-hmm.
how does the field portray the importance of working with and learning from others in a group? What
Mm-hmm.
has family advocacy collaboration taught you? Why do you think it is a good idea to discuss your thoughts with your peers each week in the Zoom meeting?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think um, it is power in numbers, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, in the movie, he was having a very difficult time trying to do this,
Mm-hmm.
so, and he didn't want to talk to the politics at the beginning, but then he invited other people, so they had to speak. I think the same happened when we work on teams.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it is easier to be heard when there is more people or when there is more than one voice
Mm-hmm.
because it gives us courage too. I think that has happened in the bad way. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I think that, for example, the LGBT, yeah,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
LGBT people or group is the minority. But
Mm-hmm.
they get together and they work together and they
Mhm.
have been heard even though they are the minority.
Mhm.
If people if people who is trying to advocate for a good thing would
Mhm.
work together, I think there will be more success
Mhm.
effort.
Right, I agree. Even with our Zoom meetings that we've had, it's really helpful to share ideas with one another because all of us in our Zoom group have different backgrounds and a different view of life. We come from different places, and but we all have the same goal together as far as advocating for good. And that is very empowering. That brings, well, me personally, that brings strength. And I think that helps one person not feel so alone, but that the burden can be shared.
Yeah,
And you can, there are people who support you in your effort.
yeah. Something that in this semester gave me a lot of courage was the discussion board. To see like how all of you post very inspiring messages on social media inspire me and help me to have more ideas.
Could you bring that just a little bit? Hard enough. Mhm.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Mhm.
Okay. Did you understand what I said?
Uh
Well,
oh.
well, I said that.
There you are. I lost you for a minute. It's
Yeah,
still recording.
yes, it is. Okay. Can you hear me well, Kara? Kara, Kara.
Okay, good.
Okay, can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Can you? Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
I think it's.
What's going on?
I don't know.
Something strange.
Okay, so I was saying about the discussion board. Uh,
Mhm.
I said that discussion boards encouraged me a lot this semester to
Mhm.
share positive and inspiring messages on social media. To
Mhm.
see how you and all of our classmates post and share inspiring things made me want to do the same. And
Mhm.
I think it was easier also to read about your experiences
Mhm.
volunteering and stuff like that, and
Mhm.
experiences you had through the week or through the life.
Yeah, it doesn't seem so scary as
Mhm.
far as advocating for the family. It seems like such a big project, but the more we studied and talked about it, actually, it was, I don't know, I felt like I can go out and actually do this.
And I am not the only one who is doing it.
Exactly. You're not the only one. You're not alone, that's for sure.
Yeah, so I really like discussion boards and like
Hmm.
gave me courage. Okay. Do you have something else on that question or do you want to go?
I do not. I'm ready to move on to the next one.
Okay. So number 5, right?
Hmm. So number 5, what parallels do you see between Wilbur and Captain Moroni in Alma 46? What is a Christian and professional family advocate, and how did Wilbur exemplify that? How can you be and effective and Christ-like against such loud and often degrading voices. And I recently finished the account about Captain Moroni, and he was actually really young. And he was very full of life, very energetic. He was purpose-driven. He had goals, and he knew his work. And Wilbur, in that sense, reminded me of Captain Moroni because he too was young, and he was purpose-driven. He knew the importance of freedom and of liberty, and that applied to all people, not just white individuals or otherwise, but to everyone. And Wilbur, he also had a belief in God and the work he was called to achieve. That actually caught. Or let's see, what am I reading? His belief in God helped him gain the courage and the power to fight against this evil. He knew that he could.
Yeah. Well, also, I think they lead by example, both of them. They're very good examples. And Captain Moroni wanted his people to keep together to defend their peace. And also, Wilbur, they kept the people together and defend the beliefs. And yeah, and just what you said. The answers were very similar. Like they were very young.
Right. Wilbur was neat because he didn't back down from his duty, and Moroni was the same way. He knew what he had to do to protect the people, and he did it. I'm sure he got discouraged, but he didn't let that discouragement last for long. He just went and did, just like Nephi, Mr. Go and Do, went and did.
And about the other question, like, how can you be effective and Christ-like against such loud and often degrading voices? I think, like, we have to love people who is around us. Something that very impacts me or impressed me about this movie was the love that Wilbur had for the slaves and for all the people around him, and how he developed that love even he didn't know them like very well. Like he didn't each of them, and they were friends for a long time. And I think that is something Christian characteristic that I should develop. I think it is very difficult sometimes to love people who we don't know, but when we are empathic and when we try to live or to understand their situations, I think it is easier to develop love for them. And when we love people or when we love, it's easier to be more effective and also to remember that we should act and we should say what Christ would say in our situation. And if we don't agree with other people, I think we should look for the right words and we should think like, what will Christ say? Like, just like
right, rather than getting mad and saying whatever comes to your mind and regretting it later. I completely agree.
We are right. We should be able to love and to be patient.
Yeah, I agree. We advocates, it's very possible to defend truth and to teach truth without getting angry and to do that in a Christ-like manner. It could be hard. because I'm sure there are many topics that either you or I or anybody are very passionate about, but the point is to be Christ-like and loving towards one another in all that we say and do,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to defending the family.
Yes. Okay. So number 6. Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Marcia Harlow was spoken persuasive speaking and writing. Did Wilbur and others exemplify any Did Wilbur and others exemplify any of Marcy's ideas? How so?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think he was a very good storyteller,
Mm-hmm.
and he was very persuasive in that way.
Mm-hmm.
And he encouraged people to make connections. I think other people connect to the slaves through him. I think I don't remember what is the spoke of Marcia Barco. I don't know if
Well,
I remember.
but you do know that he was very passionate and he spoke with a great deal of emotion, which is important when you're speaking to a congregation of whatever size it may be. I mean, he was very well spoken and direct, and he, like you said, he made connections. And there was one, let's see, as far as opposing views, when you're speaking, it's important to understand the opposing side, get their perspective, and try to find common ground between the, both parties involved, and then build up on that common ground you have together. I only had a few little notes on that. Oh, and telling stories, that's excellent too. I love hearing stories. I remember President Monson, he always would tell a
Yeah.
story when speaking, and that just made it so much more personal.
Yes. He was.
And apply what he's teaching, or what he did teach, to the saints, to the members of the church, by using those stories and experiences.
Yes, I like that way how leaders teaches because
Mm-hmm.
we can make connections with them through their stories.
Mm-hmm.
Remember the general conference, the el the elder Randall. I don't know how to.
Randall, there's Rasband, and the
No,
other one starts with an R. I think it
yeah, the elder
was Rasband.
Rand.
Okay, yeah. I think it's one of the apostles.
Yes, he started his speech, his talk, with the story of his daughter who was
Mm-hmm.
afraid to have children.
Mm-hmm.
And that connects with me like very easily because I was just thinking about the same. And now that is one of my favorite dogs. But
Mm-hmm.
it's because he started with just a story like that. So I think
Mm-hmm.
stories are very, very important when we
Mm-hmm.
want to persuade somebody.
Well, that's how we teach each other.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Let's see, question 7.
Yes.
What role did the government, policy, and religious freedom play in the fight of the slave trade? Did you see their political system being pro-family? Why or why not? This one was kind of tricky.
Yeah.
As far as the government, I don't think they were particularly pro-family, but maybe it was more about seeking riches and status stuff, just being rich and wealthy. But maybe deep down, those members of the government sought these riches and their status to provide the best of life for their own families, even though it doesn't really come out that way. It was mainly about eat, drink, and be merry and have fun and play cards. And but I think it was more centered on the individual than the family. And I think they also, but I don't think they saw slaves as people, just merely things to own and to use, just something else. They didn't see them as people, just more like animals, I guess. Something you own, like a horse. So, I mean, in that regard, I don't think that the Parliament really was family-centered. If so, and if they understood that slaves also came from families, maybe that would have changed things a bit. And I think the government and the church in that area were kind of combined or they were enmeshed quite a bit. Though I think, just a second. Oops. Though I think lawmakers are probably just try to justify their actions using religion or vice versa for the reasons why they have the slave trade and why it was okay. And it was kind of contradictory to me, in my opinion. It's like, how can you treat another man or woman of God like this?
Yeah. So also, I wasn't sure about their their positions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but they freed the slaves, and the slaves wanted to be with the family. So I think they were pro family. That
In a very weird way. Like,
yeah,
we're going to take you from your family.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
It was like very weird. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so just my logic was like if they free the slaves, so probably they were pro.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But very weird.
Let's see. Shall we go to question 8?
Yeah.
Okay. Question 8. Do you feel that Wilbur used his time on Earth well? How did you see him showing the elements of consecration that Elder Christofferson spoke of? And I certainly believe he did. He used his time and his money and, I mean, all the resources that he could to advocate for the slaves and to let them have their freedom. And he also had to be very consistent and even very aggressive every day for years to have his voice heard and to even make a difference, even just a little difference. And Elder Christofferson stated that a consecrated life is a beautiful thing. It certainly is.
Mm-hmm.
When you're putting aside your own wants and needs for the betterment of someone else's life, yeah, that certainly is very rewarding. And even though Wilbur, he got frustrated and then very sick and discouraged, uh, he didn't see the results of his work until years later. But he was able to finally achieve his goal, and because he had to keep going, he had to keep working at it, and he was very focused on his goal of having slavery abolished. So I think he certainly used his time well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that question was obvious. Yes, he did. He uses his time to gather people to support. He uses his time to to research and everything. And
Mm-hmm.
a quote that I like in that um, in that speech, in that talk, it I think I think describes very good like the labor of Wilbur. It says a consecrated life is a life of labor.
Mm-hmm.
And Wilbur worked for a long time. His life was full of labor. So he
Mm-hmm.
consecrated his life, or probably, I don't know his whole life, but
Mm-hmm.
a lot of his life he consecrated his time to that labor. So
Mm-hmm.
I think he used his time well.
I agree. Excellent.
Okay, number 9. Any other
Mm-hmm.
profound thoughts or personal insights from the movie that are related to child and family advocacy?
Mm-hmm.
Well, uh, it is really similar to the other like Christian characteristics. Christian. And it, I wrote that to see the love he had for the people, it
Mm-hmm.
inspired me to find that passion for the people who is around me. And that movie inspired me to look for opportunities to love people, to
Mm-hmm.
advocate, and to really find a passion in my life. I think I haven't find I haven't found really passion in my life. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but to see how he lives his life, it's very inspiring. So I I want to follow his example and to look for that opportunity to be patient for the people.
Excellent. Love that. I like the, let's see, Elder Bednar, when he was talking about, well, even for the whole class about sweeping the earth as with a flood, and when we had to post some positive message about family or marriage or what have you on our social media or share with our family through the term. And Wilbur used everything he could to teach the people about the inhumanity of the slave trade. And he was fearless in his work. He may have been unsure, maybe doubted, but he was fearless. He kept working at it. And that's what we need to do. We need to keep teaching and raising our voices and putting messages up on social media to get the general public thinking of how the importance of family issues. And I thought to myself, how often do we complain because our efforts seem hopeless? You're like, oh, I've spent so many years and nothing's happening. Is anything good gonna come of the work that we're doing? And Wilbur, even though he was discouraged and he did get sick for quite a while and frustrated, but he still was empowered by God and by his by the hope he had to advocate for these people. And that makes me think, well, Heavenly Father certainly blesses us with abilities that we otherwise think we don't have. And I think about school, I'm like, oh, I just want to give up with school. It's so hard and difficult, but for some reason, I just keep going day to day. And that's been a huge blessing. And my last thought is knowing the difficulties that are before us and that we have to prepare ourselves for. We need to make sure we take care of ourselves spiritually, but physically we need to be healthy and strong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Healthy and strong so that we can do the work that we're called to do.
Yeah. Well, do you want to move on?
Huh?
Do you want to move to the other question?
Oh, yeah. We'll go to number 10.
Okay.
What was your understanding of the doctrine of the family at the beginning of the semester, and how has it changed? Well, classes that I've taken with the Pathway program and with BYU Idaho mainly studied the proclamation in scriptures and some talks going along with the family. So from that point of view, I understand it. But it was different looking at the importance of the family from an advocate's point of view and looking at the issues that are wreaking havoc on marriage and family today. And I certainly have a greater appreciation for Heavenly Father's plan. And I certainly want to make it a goal of mine to teach the importance of not only the gospel, but family and marriage to my neighbors when I can, especially with my nieces and nephews as they grow up in such a crazy world. I want to be there to teach them and to teach them truth, not what the world thinks.
Yeah. Well, in my case, I think the knowledge that I had about the family, it was a knowledge like had founded in just faith, in a blind faith. Just what I read or what I heard, like in church. But in a different point of view, like this semester, I saw like how important is the family in the society and how it influences the problems, like how the society can be destroyed or can be by by not having the correct knowledge about the family and the importance of the family. And it was amazing to see how many churches support the family, the proclamation of the family and the words of our leaders. And it is not just now I just don't have that knowledge based on faith and based on the works of our leaders.
Right.
And I have that knowledge also by their reason. How that
yeah.
It made a click in my head, in my brain, and it is awesome. And I now know how urgent is to teach other people what I know now.
Right. Because when you're teaching others, you have to teach from a secular, scientific point of view, being that there's many individuals who don't want to have anything to do with organized religion, don't want to hear anything about the scriptures, the Bible, nothing. So you have to approach the issue from a different perspective based on numbers and scientific research. But with the Spirit, you can actually do that. And I've always had a concern, well, you know the truth, but how do you teach the truth to people who don't want anything to do with religion at all? Like, okay, well, then you have to do numbers. You have to get to concrete, logical information, and then you can teach it.
Yes. Okay, so on the last one, it says, picture your spouse and children, current or future, and write down some thoughts about how they will benefit from you taking this class. Well, I want to teach. I don't have children yet, but I want to teach them to believe in the family, but not in a blind way. I want to teach them to believe in family, in the traditional family, with faith and knowledge. And also, I want them to raise their voice and defend what they know and advocate for the right thing. I want them to well, now I see how important it is to show how happy we can be in a family. And
Hmm.
I want them to be raised in a happy family, and to believe that there is happiness in family.
Hmm.
So I have a commitment with myself and my husband to always show them how happy it is to be in a family, in a perfect
Hmm.
family. So yeah, that is what I have learned in this course. And I want them to learn.
Hooray! You'll have a great family. Well, I myself, I'm not married. I don't have any children. And however, I know that I can still teach kids, I can still teach families truth. And I work in the junior primary at church. And so I jump in and help out with the sunbeams, the 4-year-olds. Love them to pieces. They're so funny. And I can encourage them to talk about their families and why they love them and why they're important. And that will help to prepare them to meet challenges that they encounter when they get older, get married, and have families of their own. And the message of the gospel and Heavenly Father's plan provide the hope and the strength that husband and wife need to make their marriage work well and their family to be together happily, immortality, and to stay together for eternity. And I can do that. I'm like, I can at least teach that. I'm like, I don't have my own family just yet,
Yes.
but there's plenty of families out there and individuals that can be taught in the interim. And that's certainly my goal, is to be a beacon of knowledge and to share my testimony with them about that.
Good. Well, I'm going to stop to record. Is it okay?
Okay.